All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan. I'm the pastor and executive director here. This is Noelle. She's the community director here. Welcome to all of you on kind of a weird, snowy day in Denver, huh? And any Nuggets fans out there? Nuggets. Look at you loyal people coming here instead of watching the game.
Dedicated.
Go Nuggets. For those of you online, welcome to you. We're glad you're here, glad you're part of this community. Hey, just to give you the quick reminder, this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And there's always one thing we do not do. Though this is 2 words, we say it in 4 words. On the count of 3, y'all can shout it out. If you're in your living room, just shout it out or put it in the comments. 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. No, well, we've got some other things coming up, though. Not shame, but...
Not shame, but we do have hoodies that say no shame on them. If you like Ryan's hoodie, and show them your sleeve. On your sleeve.
This is so cool.
Embroidered, it says...
Is Crystal here? She's in the back. Crystal had these made for us, made them for us.
Crystal and her husband's company, they had them made for us. But it says, you are not damaged goods, you are God's creation. So they're out there in the cafe, so check them out. Ryan had the original, but the ones that are out there in the cafe, they also have Free's logo embroidered on the sides. So,
but I'm an OG, so I didn't get the logo.
Right, okay. All right. So grab those guys out there. And then if you are someone who's been looking for a car decal, a free car decal, come see Karie after service. These are $10, and she'll have these guys. So there we go.
Excellent.
If tonight is your first night here, welcome. We are so grateful to have you here with us. We have welcome bags for you. I know a couple of you guys grabbed them before service. And inside these welcome bags has a little bit about what we do here at Free Recovery Community, a little bit about what Tammy and her team at Wagon do. There's some fresh roasted Wagon coffee in these bags, and just some other free swag. So grab one, get with a home team member, a staff member, and just know that we are so grateful that you're here with us tonight. Next up, if you're looking to get plugged into the free community, how can I get involved? Can I volunteer? We're looking for volunteers for the kids program, and so that would be either the nursery, so 5 and younger, or the older kids room, which is 5 or 6 and up rather, 6 to 12. So we have a 5 o'clock service and a 7 o'clock service. Maybe volunteer at one service and attend the second. But today is our director of Free Kids, Melissa Adams' birthday. And so if you want to really help her out on her birthday, come volunteer for the Free Kids
greatest
program.
wish.
It's her birthday gift. So come volunteer as Free Kids and be a part of our community. So yeah.
Awesome. Is that all you have, Noelle?
I don't, but I was going to invite Jerome.
Yeah, bring Jerome
here.
on.
If you guys could give it up for Jerome.
Yes, come on up here, Brother Jerome. Can I say one word before you go ahead and come up, Jerome, but before we introduce Jerome, let me just say this, because we had such a cool night last night with the dynamic dinner. Was anyone in the service part of dynamic dinner? Man, it was fire, wasn't it, Monty? Fire. Here's why I'm mentioning it. So the first one was last night. Then we're doing 3 of these. One in May 24th, and then another one in June. They're all on Friday nights. And this one sold out like the week prior. So the next one will probably sell out too. So if you are interested in coming to be a part of the dynamic dinner, get your tickets early. And I don't think you're going to regret it. It was a good time, good food, good company, good people. Just a really cool thing that's happening here. So get your tickets for the next dynamic dinner if you want to be a part of it. Jerome is here tonight, Jerome Eichstead. Here's why we're bringing Jerome up, because some of you know that we hired Karie as our Associate Executive Director. Now, she moved into that position from the position of being the Community Ambassador, which is a 20-hour-a-week position. So that position was vacant, and Jerome actually wrote the job description for that job. Karie was reporting to Jerome. Jerome serves on our board of directors, but not anymore on the board because he's our new staff member here at Free as the new community ambassador. Let's give it up for Jerome Eichstead. Let me say one more piece about Jerome, because here's what you need to know. For the last couple of years, anyone who reaches out to me, which is at least on a weekly basis, saying, I need help, I have a family member who needs help, and it's centered on like getting into treatment and what are the options, how does the system work. I always refer them to Jerome because Jerome is an expert in this field. He's got lots of years working in this field, and he is so patient and gracious with these families and individuals. So honored to be working alongside of them. But tell them what you're going to be doing with the community ambassador position.
I get to be essentially the face of the organization that goes out into the community abroad, like larger than our immediate community here, right? Essentially to let them know we're here, what we do, why we exist. I get to focus on the why so they can come see what we're all about. It's very hard to articulate, right? Some people can say why they're here, and I think if I asked everyone in here why they're here, I would get a unique answer from everyone. There would not be one response. So I am really grateful that the stars aligned for this opportunity to come about. I've always had professional interests or a professional agenda that has kept me out of here, but now we're at a position of growth that we're creating new positions because we have more needs. We have more care to give to other people. And for the first time in my unique journey, I had a professor ask me a question in class one time, like, how many people really love their job? I had my hand up, of course. But then he goes, how many people would keep doing their job if they weren't getting anything for it? And you see most of the hands go down. For the first time in my life, I get to keep my hand up. I would be here if I was getting nothing for it. And I want to continue doing that, and I will.
Yeah.
I will be a resource to you regardless of my capacity here, but I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you, Jerome. Glad to have you here. But don't leave yet. Jerome is also the head of our golf, second annual golf tournament planning team. Tell us a little bit about the golf tournament that's coming up in June.
June 17th, day after Father's Day, we are hosting our second annual golf tournament at Arrowhead Golf Course in Littleton. Same place as last year, so if you were there last year, the very first person to register this year is here. Thank you, Monty, you're the man.
Monty.
Yeah, for those who experienced that, we're going to build upon that. We're going to host a couple more contest holes. You need to inquire to find out more about that. I want to tell you, but I need to save some excitement every week. I can't just ask you to show up bring nothing to the table. So maybe next week I'll disclose a contest hole. But I will be outside after the service tonight for any questions. We have sponsorship opportunities, donation opportunities, and a really fun thing to talk about next week. So stay tuned because we want to see more people there. So
Yeah. Thank you, Jerome.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. Glad you're on staff now and not on the board. I mean, not that I'm glad you're not. You know what I mean, dude. Yeah. All right. Can you give that mic to Austin in a gray sweatshirt, please? Listen, the way we get started here at Free is always every Saturday night with celebrations. We start with the good. We lift up the good. Maybe you're celebrating a sobriety anniversary or a birthday or the new thing in your life or recovery. We believe in celebrating that together here. If you're online, drop your celebrations in the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments, whatever platform you're joining us from. We take 3 minutes for this, a very important part of our time together. So let's take 3 minutes. Jess has a mic on this side, Austin on this side. Just raise up your hand and give us the good news. Let's take 3.
Hi, my name's Karie, and this beautiful woman behind me is Melissa Adams, who we already requested for her birthday wishes. Would love volunteers in the Kids Club. Melissa, can you stand up for 1 second? Thank you so much. Happy birthday.
Happy
Glad you were
birthday,
born.
Melissa. So glad you're here.
And I'm Melanie. I am in recovery for alcohol addiction. And my very good friend, Jen, is here. And she is one of the fabulous people that picked me up off the floor when I needed to be picked up. And she is our guest storyteller tonight. So I just wanted to celebrate Jen. And this is Bob, and she's a good friend to both of us. So
All right. We're going to
excited.
celebrate that. I'm glad you're here, Jen. Y'all are in for a treat tonight. Yeah.
How's it going? My name is Ryan G. I am sober from narcotics for 229 days now and
Way to go,
free
Ryan G.
from alcohol for 11 years. I would like to give a big shout out to my father. It's his 77th birthday. Without his existence, I would not be here. Thank you.
That is true. All right. Congratulations, man. Happy birthday to Dad.
My name's Heather. I'm an alcoholic, and I have 60 days today.
Way to go, Heather. 60 days. That's a long time.
I'm Charlie, and for the first time in 10 years, I'm 6 months sober.
Way to go, Charlie. Congratulations, man.
Chris, addict, a couple of things. First, I was able to get my son ready for prom this evening. Second, the person I love most in the world just got 60 days. I want to celebrate that. And also on Tuesday, I've got a hearing for my son, my 18-year-old son, so that we can actually see each other again for the first time in over 2 years. I'd love some prayers for that. It's awesome stuff all around.
All right, Chris. Good stuff in your life, man. Congratulations.
Hi, my name's Joshua. I'm an addict. I'm clean 251 days today, and I came for the first time in my life that I made a choice to be clean. And I come here on my second week of rehab to this free church. It was my first outing, and it really woke me up to the big picture of the community at large. You know what I mean? I was in a small rehab for the first time, but I came to church here with Pathfinders, and that was like 240 some days ago. And it was my first time I seen this many people sober in the same direction, and it really inspired me. So I came back to celebrate my 8-month chip, which I just picked up tonight.
All right, man. Congratulations. Glad you're here, Josh.
Hi, I'm Pamela. I'm a loved one. I just want to celebrate my son, who is officially off probation after 18 months.
Yeah.
He's been working really hard, and I don't have to fly out to LA anymore. He can come here.
That's good news. That's a celebration indeed. All right, we got one more. And Jess, can you give your mic to Tammy? But yeah, let's do one more.
My name is Chance. It's a pretty big week in my household. My wife celebrated 1 year, and I just celebrated 3 years.
1 year and 3 years. Congratulations, Chance and Katie. So glad you both are here and part of this community. Austin, you can just, you know what? Why don't you just hang on to that for a little bit? Mm-hmm. Tammy Canada.
Hi there. And Breck graduated up to his red belt today
Yeah, our
at
8-year-old
martial
boy
arts.
Breck is now a red belt.
We'll celebrate that. And my mom's in town, so she got to come celebrate too. Gets to come watch Shiloh at gymnastics. And she missed the tornadoes yesterday.
Yeah, she's from Omaha.
Yep.
Yeah, so lots of destruction there.
I know. So we'll put that in, we'll slide that into the prayers later.
Celebration and a heartache.
Yeah.
All right, you want to join with our online community? You can take the first one.
Danny says, my brother Saxton went to treatment. Super proud of him.
All right, way to go, Saxon. Danny, thanks for sharing that with us, man. Kristen says, I'd like to celebrate my daughter's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to Adriana. I'd also like to celebrate my son being 2 weeks sober.
Ooh,
That
nice.
is a celebration, 2 of them.
Awesome,
Way to go,
Kristen.
Kristen.
And there's Kai celebrating 408 days free of fentanyl.
Free of fentanyl, 408 days. Way to go, Kai. Ooh. Matt says 401 days
Nice,
fentanyl
Matt.
free. Way to go, Matt.
Way to go.
Matt and Kai right next to each other.
And Jessica says, very grateful to be celebrating 3 years in Al-Anon today.
Yes, way to go,
Awesome,
Jess. Glad you're here. Glad you're part of this community. Thank you, Tammy, for joining me up here. Yeah, we'll keep that up here for Jen and Karie when they come up. Austin has your mic. All right, y'all. We are in this 4th week of the series called Now What? We're going to be spending 7 weeks total in this series. Tonight, it's I think I found God. Now what? Well, in his book, Tattoos on the Heart, which I highly recommend, by the way, anyone read it? Tattoos on the Heart? Very good book, highly recommend it. Father Gregory Boyle tells the story of Willie. And Willie was in his mid-20s, and he was coming out of gang life and trying to turn his life around. And Father G, as they call him, was telling the very simple story about going to a store with Willie. And they arrive at the store, and Father G gets out of the car, and he says to Willie, stay put, and I'll be right back. I'm going to run in the store and come right back out. And Father G gets out of the car, and he's walking in, and he looks back to check on Willie to make sure Willie's doing okay. And Willie is motioning to Father G like, yo, I need the car keys to turn on the radio. To which Father G motioned back and said, you need to pray because you ain't getting my car keys. So Father G goes into the store, and he comes back out, and he finds that Willie is still in the prayer position. And he sits in the car, and Father G says to him, Willie, I can tell you've been praying. Tell me, what did God say to you? Willie said, well, the first thing God said to me was to shut up and listen. And then he says to Willie, Willie, tell me something. How do you see God? And Willie said, that's my dog right there. He said, He said, tell me something, Willie. How does God see you? And he says, Willie is resting his head back on the recliner, looking up at the car ceiling, and tears start to roll down his cheeks. And he says, God thinks I'm firme, which means couldn't be better. God thinks I couldn't be better. See, maybe you're here tonight and you are like in the process of coming back to a spiritual journey. Maybe it was a path that you were raised in, a particular path you were raised with. Or maybe you're here tonight and you're like new in your recovery and you're starting the journey of stepping on to a spiritual path, but you weren't raised with this stuff. You weren't raised with the God stuff or spirituality. Certainly weren't raised with religion. And maybe you're here tonight and you're saying, man, I think I found God, but now what? Like, now what do I do? And I would ask you, tell me about this new God of yours. Tell me, how do you see God? How does God see you? Tell me about this new God. And listen, y'all, we have to remember, if your new God looks like all your old gods, you might keep running into the same old problems. And I would remind you, whether you were raised with God in spirituality or you weren't raised with God in spirituality, there are some old systems that you are going to have to clear your mind and heart of. There are some old systems that you are going to have to get rid of. I want you to think for a moment about some of the old gods in your life. And if you're sitting here right now, or you're watching online right now, and you're saying, no, you got to understand, I wasn't raised with religion, wasn't raised with the God stuff. No, I would tell you, we all have old gods in our life. Maybe you still have those gods in your life. And I want you to think about, what did those gods demand of you? What sacrifices did they demand of you? For many of us here tonight, we had the God of addiction. Is it true? What did this God demand of you? What were the sacrifices required by this God? I don't know about you, but in my experience, this God demanded everything. And this God didn't stop until this God got everything. And the thing is, we bowed down at the altar and we were willing to give it all. Or maybe for you, you had the God of comparison, measuring up, the God of success. And I would ask you, what did these gods demand of you? What were the sacrifices required? You said, oh man, I just want so much success in my career. Well, what were the sacrifices? Your family? Your friends? Your kids? Your health? Your wholeness? Your well-being? Your presence? And did you sacrifice enough? And how did you ever know if enough was enough? And maybe you had the God of guilt, like something in your past, and you bowed down to this God. And what kinds of sacrifices did this God demand? Your peace? And did you slip into the thinking that, man, if I can just run from my past rather than facing it, maybe somehow I can appease this God? And speaking of appeasing, I mean, how many of you had gods in your life and they were just always so angry with you? They were always angry. They always demanded more, and you kept giving more because you thought that somehow you could keep the gods pleased, you could keep them on your side, you could get them off your back, and it just kept producing in your life more and more anxiety. Or was God just the game you played when things weren't working out in your life? You just played the game. God, will you do this for me? Did you bow at that altar? God, do this for me. And I promise you, God, if you do this for me, I'm going to do this for you. And you were trying so hard to figure out how to keep this God happy so that you could receive some sort of blessing in your life. And y'all, it's not real distant thinking, is it? Because how many times do we hear, or maybe even how many times have you said, when life is going your way, when you like your life, you say, oh, God is good, and God is blessing me. I mean, look at me. And then when life isn't working out, when life takes a turn, when you encounter the hard, how many times do we hear it said, well, maybe God's teaching me a lesson. Really? Well, I don't know, man. Maybe the gods are angry with me. Really? Well, what gods? What are they angry about? Why are they always so angry? Do you see why engaging the question of what is your God like? Do you see why it's so important? And I would remind you, if you are coming back to a spiritual path, or you are beginning on a spiritual path for the very first time, I would make one suggestion tonight. And that is, let the old system of religious sacrifice completely die. Have you ever thought about it? Like, where did this system come from? I mean, this idea of sacrificing to the gods, where did it come from? Did we just make it up? Did we just arrive on it? No, we can track this all the way back to the ancient world. It's interesting, when you read through the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament, you see these sacrificing to the gods all over the place. And it's interesting, the early humans, they came to this realization, this stuff is fascinating. They came to the realization that their survival as a species depended on things like food and water. Pretty simple, right? In order for their crops to grow, their food to grow, they had to get just the right amount of sunlight. Not too much sun because everything would just wither away, but just the right amount of sun. In order for their plants, their crops to grow so that they could eat, well, they had to get just the right amount of rain, water, not too much water because everything would just flood away, but just the right amount of water. And these very basic observations about the world led the people to this idea that their survival depended on unseen forces that they could not control. The belief came about that these forces, the gods, they were either on your side or they weren't. In very simple ways. Your crops would either grow or they wouldn't grow. You were able to bear children or you couldn't have kids. Your animals, your livestock would either stay healthy or they would get sick and die. And so the thinking was very simple. I mean, what do you do when you bring in your crops for the season? If you had a good crop season, you pick your crops, and then when you're done, you set aside a portion of that to the gods. You make a sacrifice. It's your way of expressing gratitude. If your animals stayed healthy that season and none of your animals died, well, you need to show gratitude to the gods, so you take one of those animals and you slaughter it, you kill it, you sacrifice it to the gods. But here's the thing. What if you didn't have a good crop season? What if the harvest wasn't good? There wasn't enough rain that season. What if one of your animals got sick and died and infected other animals? I mean, what do you do with this? Well, you would be thrown into all kinds of questions. Maybe the gods are angry with us. Maybe last season we didn't sacrifice enough, so maybe now we need to sacrifice another cow. Maybe we need to throw in a goat. Maybe we need to throw in a lamb. And it was always more. And in this anxiety-producing religious system, you never really knew where you stood with the gods. And isn't this interesting? Followers of Baal. Anyone heard of the god Baal? B-A-A-L. You can find the god of Baal in the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. Followers of Baal, going back 3,000 years in the land of Canaan. Did you know that some of the followers, they would go up to the altar and they would literally cut themselves, showing their devotion to the gods? It was their way of saying, if I shed my blood on the altar, will I be worthy? Can I earn your favor? And we hear that, we say, that's just so primitive, so barbaric. Who would ever fall into a system like that? Why would they ever buy into that kind of system? And yet I would ask you, how many people do you know that literally cut themselves and they bleed on the altar of, am I good enough now? I'm in pain. Do you see me now? I'm in pain. Will the pain stop now? Now, if you wanted to give the thing that was most of value to you, if you wanted to sacrifice the thing that was most valuable to you, what would you offer? Let me ask it another way. For parents in the room, if you wanted to sacrifice, give the thing that was most valuable to you, what would you offer? Your child. Which brings us to the book of Genesis, which is the very first book of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. And it brings us to this very fascinating story about a guy named Abraham and his only son Isaac. And if you are in the Bible Curious discussions on Tuesday, you're going to remember this story. It's one of my favorite stories, and it is so fascinating, but not for the reasons you might be thinking it is. And I want to read part of this story with you, and I want you to read it through the lens of this question. What kind of God would ask a man to sacrifice his son? Here's how the story goes. If you want to read the whole story, Genesis chapter 22, 1 through 19, I'm just going to read a few select verses. Here's how it starts. God said to Abraham, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him up as an entirely burned offering there on one of the mountains that I will show you. Abraham got up early in the morning, harnessed his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, together with his son Isaac. He split the wood for the entirely burned offering, set out, and went to the place God had described to him. And let's just pause there for a minute. Because is anyone wondering, wait a minute, how come Abraham is not just entirely blown away at this request? How come he's not a bit shocked at this request? Because there's nothing new in the story. This is how the gods are. They just keep demanding, and they finally demand the thing that is most valuable to you. This is how the gods are. If it were you or me, we might be a bit blown away. We might say things like, no, God, I ain't doing this one for you. This is child abuse. This is illegal. I'm not sacrificing my son. You can have other things, but you're not taking my child. Why is he not shocked? Because this is just simply how the gods are. Check it out, though. Very next verse. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place at a distance. And I want to pause there for just one moment. When you see the phrase in Scripture, on the 3rd day, it is the storyteller's way of giving you a huge heads up. It's the storyteller's way of saying, pay attention. Because when you see that phrase, that's always when the new thing happens. The new thing happens on the 3rd day, the story twist, the plot twist. The ancient hearers of this story, they could have been cleaning the house, doing the dishes, whatever they were doing. And as they're hearing this story on the 3rd day, everyone would have stopped and looked up. This is the moment to pay attention. So Isaac is walking up this mountain with his father Abraham. And Isaac, this young boy, is carrying the sticks, carrying wood for the fire, the burnt offering. And Isaac, imagine this conversation. Isaac says, Pops, I got the wood for the burnt offering, but Pops, I don't see the sacrifice. Where's the animal? You know that had to be awkward. Well, Isaac, how you feeling today? Do you know what Abraham says to him? Abraham says, Isaac, don't worry about it. He says these words, God will provide. Check it out. They arrived at the place God had described to him. Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He tied up his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Had to be awkward. Then Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. But on the 3rd day, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, here I am. He said, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. And do you all realize what a story stopper this would have been in the ancient world? They would have been asking the question, what kind of God stops a sacrifice? This makes no sense. In the story, it's like God says to Abraham, Abraham, my boy, I know you are so used to all the other gods, and they just keep demanding more and more sacrifices, and more is never enough, and they're getting to the thing that's most valuable to you now. And Abraham, do you think that's who I am? Do you think that's what I need? Abraham, stop. Then Abraham looks up, and he sees in the bushes there's a ram caught in a thicket with its horns. And the story tells us that that ram becomes the sacrifice. And I get it, some of you are thinking, but man, that's still a weird story though, right? I mean, why is God always so angry? Why does God need something to die to be appeased? Why is God always so bloodthirsty? Why does God need blood anyway? And I can imagine God saying to Abraham in that moment, Abraham, I know you think I need the sacrifice. I know that's how you people are. So I'm going to provide for you, but don't think for a minute this is for me. This is for you because you think I need it, but I don't, but I'm going to provide anyway. You see, the beginning of this story, it would have been nothing new for the ancient people. There's nothing new here. This is just how the gods are. They're demanding another sacrifice. What's new here? But this story disrupts the sacrifice. This story, the shock of the story is, don't do it. Stop. The shock of this story is God provides. And it is not dependent on Abraham. Abraham doesn't do the giving. God does the giving. And God essentially goes on to tell Abraham in the end of the story, God says, listen, Abraham, you've got a new role in life. You're going to go on to love all the other people, all the other nations, not just your tribe, not just your nation. You're going to love all people, and you're going to remind them of my love for them. And by the way, Abraham, God isn't angry. What kind of God would ask a man to sacrifice his son? According to this story, not this God. Not this one. You know, it's so interesting to me. Growing up in a church and all my years in Sunday school class and in youth group and then being a young adult in the church, every time this story was taught to me, it was always taught in the same way. That, oh, look at Abraham. Isn't Abraham so faithful? Abraham is just so obedient. He's willing to give the thing that is most valuable to him, and that's what we need to be like. We need to be more like Abraham. And if God asks it, we just march up the mountain and we give it. And I would tell you today, no, that's absolute crazy talk. In fact, if I were to come to you next Saturday and say, listen, y'all, I got a word from the Lord here. And God wants me to take my son Breck, who's 8 years old, and go up to a mountaintop of 14er and make a sacrifice of my son. Many of y'all would be like jetting out of here, and you'd be on the phone calling Child Protective Services. Is it true? As you should. As you should. And isn't it interesting? How do we read this story that's all about the new thing that God is doing, and we all of a sudden make it about Abraham? This story has so very little to do with Abraham, but it's about a God who says, stop. Man, aren't you tired yet? Aren't you exhausted? You've been trying to get me on your side. Stop. That's not what I'm about. I do not need your sacrifices. Yeah, you see, any system or concept or idea that tells you that you have to do something to get God to love you, or you have to do something to get God on your side, I would encourage you to totally and utterly reject it. Any system that tells you bad things are happening because God is punishing you or because you didn't give enough, you didn't sacrifice enough, I would encourage you to completely reject it. Any system or idea that tells you that God blesses some nations over other nations or some people groups over other people groups, and by the way, you just happen to be in that blessed people group, that blessed nation, I would encourage you to totally and utterly reject it. You see, what's the requirement? It's not sacrifices. It's not more. Addiction did enough of that in our lives. It's not about sacrifices. What's required? Just the belief that God can be trusted. You see, my brothers and sisters, when it comes to you and God, you are firme. Couldn't be better. That's how God sees you. You see, if your spiritual path includes a God who's never pleased with you, a God who's always angry with you, a God who just keeps demanding more and more and more, well, I have to tell you, I don't think that path is going to endure. You're going to give up. You're going to step off that path. Why would you stay on it? It's a path where you're going to be told you're not worthy. You're going to be totally exhausted. You're going to be lacking joy in your life. You're never going to measure up. I would say stop trying so hard. God's already on your side. God's love is already for you. You're breathing. Look at you. Take a breath. Yeah, you're breathing. Many of you here tonight, many of you online, you're miracles. You're absolute miracles. And what if God doesn't need anything from you? What if God is just simply providing? Can you rest in the God who provides? You see, if you've been working tirelessly to get God on your side, if you've been working tirelessly to get God to love you, if you've been working tirelessly thinking God's not going to love me unless, God's not going to bless me unless, stop. There's another way. You know, one of my favorite lines from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a very simple line. It comes from page 86. And they give us this idea that when you are in active relationship with God, then we can relax and take it easy. Man, that's a new way to be. You see, some of you might be here tonight and you're asking, but wait a minute, aren't there sacrifices to be made on the spiritual journey? Yeah, there are sacrifices to be made. But it's not out of guilt. It's not because you're trying to get God to love you more. It's because you actually care about the relationship. You're fostering something. You're growing something. A relationship is building. In fact, I would tell you every relationship you're in requires sacrifice. Sacrifice is when it costs you something to love that person, but it's a price that you would gladly pay. Maybe we're making sacrifices all the time. Think about your friendships. Do you make sacrifices in your friendships? Of course you do. You care about the relationship. You're fostering a relationship, so you sacrifice your time, your energy. You open your heart. Who has kids in the room? Yeah, some of y'all know about sacrifices. We're always sacrificing for our kids, but it's not out of guilt. It's because we love them. In fact, just on Wednesday night, I was with Karie over at the Iliff School of Theology, and we were speaking at an event held at Iliff, and we got home late that night. It was at least 4 hours past Karie's bedtime. It was like 8:30. I pull in my driveway at 8:30, and both my boys, 8 years old and 5 years old, they're standing in the driveway, and Bricks, who's 5 years old, he's got the basketball under his arm, and I pull in, I roll down the window, and they say, "Poppy, are you ready for the game?" And like the last thing I wanted to do that night was play basketball. I was tired. But I knew the joy that they would have, and I got to be a part of that joy, and I got roped in because Bricks, my 5-year-old, he says, "Poppy, we have to play the game because we have to prepare for the Nuggets game." Of course we play basketball. We're making sacrifices all the time. I can tell you I've been married to Tammy for 19 years. She has to make sacrifices for me. I have to make sacrifices for her, but it's not out of guilt. It's not to try to get her to love me more or that she can be more proud of me. It's because I love the relationship. I care about the relationship. I love her. She loves me, I think. And so we make sacrifices for each other. Y'all can breathe. Breathe. The spiritual journey isn't meant to be exhausting. It isn't meant to be trying to earn something more from God. It's already with you. The good gift is already yours. So if you're here tonight and you're saying, "Man, I think I found God, but now what?" I'll leave you with these very 4 simple suggestions. And the first one is this: keep turning your life over to the care of God, because this God can be trusted. And second, keep asking your questions and expressing your doubts. If you're headed up the mountain and you're trying to slip back into old ways, the old sacrificial system, keep asking your questions, keep expressing your doubts. God can handle them. And number 3, invite God in on the daily and express your gratitude often. And finally, whatever you do, don't buy into an anxiety-filled religious system. You, my brothers and sisters, can relax and take it easy. So I want to invite you into a moment of reflection. Take a moment and reflect. What old gods do you need to let die? I mean, completely die. What new ways do you need to welcome in God into your life, to turn your life over? What things do you need to give up? How does God see you? How do you see God? This song is called God Is by the Outer Banks. Take a moment.
friends. Hi. So if you're new with us tonight, you should know that every week we have somebody come and join us from our community to share their experience, strength, and hope with us on the topic at hand. A good friend of mine, Melanie, referred me to this woman who you're about to meet. As you know, our community is for addicts, loved one of addicts, and spiritual refugee. Jen here qualifies as the trifecta. She is the triple winner. So if you would please help me welcome Jen up to help us to hear some of her story. Hi, Jen. Welcome. Oops, your mic on?
Now it is?
Perfect.
Okay.
Welcome. So I want to thank you for being here. As we talked in our meeting, so you are a triple winner. You are the addict, loved one, and the spiritual refugee. When Melanie first introduced me to you, she referred to you as a former atheist turned Catholic. Now, in our community, it's quite common to go the other way, being raised in the Catholic religion and then becoming an atheist. However, your story was a little bit different. So when you became an alcoholic and you were in treatment, you were asked to find a higher power of your own understanding. Can you tell us what that process looked like?
Sure. So, yes. So I gave the church of my youth the bird when I was 13 when I started drinking and worshiped the God of self-reliance my whole life, right? You know, I think that I am super smart, and if I work hard enough and put my mind to anything, I can achieve it. But I couldn't draw a sober breath on my own. And so when I landed in this treatment center and enough of me wanted to live more than I wanted to die and drink myself to death, I took them seriously when they were like, you've got to find a higher power. And I was like, well, what the hell is that? And so treatment center, you do lots of creative arts and crafts and assignments and things like that. And this one was write a job description for God. And that really worked for me, right? And I pulled it out of my rehab notebook this week, looking at it, and it was like, my job description for my higher power was, hear my prayers, love me, forgive me, teach me how to trust you, teach me how to forgive others, because I was really, really angry at the world. And that was enough to make a beginning, I didn't have to know anything more than that. That was enough for this drunk atheist to get started.
And you had that same God with you for a majority of your sobriety. And up in 2020, when the world got a little nuts, in case you guys forgot, you had a lot of things come down into, besides just a global pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about those things and then what you had to do with the God that you knew?
So yeah, I think I'm not unique in that 2020 was a rough year. In addition to the big story of the year, my husband had gone to rehab in December 2019, and so he was in very early sobriety when the world shut down, including the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step programs. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. My sponsor drank. And I was blowing up my job. I eventually got fired, and I deserved it. Stone cold sober, got fired. And I was going to a really dark place. And what was really true is that so much of my sobriety and my way to God was through helping others and working with new women. And suddenly in 2020, that door was closed. I wasn't meeting any new women, because the rooms were closed. And I went into a real crisis and had to ask for help. And for me and my walk, right, for me, that's, I got to do the 12 steps again. That's the path that got me to God the first time. And, you know, in that experience, I saw, oh, like all this time, I've thought, God has my sobriety. Like, I trust God to keep me sober. But it's my job to handle my career and my marriage and my daughterhood and my friendships. Like, it hadn't occurred to me to invite God into those parts of my life. I mean, like, talk about old beliefs or old systems of thinking, right? Like, it was almost transactional, right? Like, God had worked this incredible miracle in my life that a drunk like me was drawing a sober breath. So, like, in trade for that great gift, I had to handle all the rest of my life. And what I saw in this new spiritual pursuit was, no, dummy. God just loves you. And you can ask God for help with anything. And that was so mind-blowing and so transformational that was like that next piece.
Well, and you'd also discovered that your God had to get big enough to hold those people, to hold your loved ones, when you could do what you could do to help them, but that you couldn't become their higher power either. So how did you apply that same God, and how did your God get bigger and big enough to carry everyone in your life?
You know, it's really, it's prayer, and it's like learning. My husband eventually drank again, and so he was out for about 2.5 years, and he's 4 months sober now. Fucking miracle. And so for those 2 years or so, while he was suffering, like, I was really clear that I couldn't fix it, right? And so what am I to do? Right? And it was just get closer to God, and trust that God who carried me carries him, carried my dad through his cancer, now carries my mom as a widow. And that if I ask and seek, like, I'm given what I need, and the people that I love are given what they need, even if it doesn't look the way I think it's supposed to look or happen on the timing I think it's supposed to happen. Because again, like, I have to trust God. And so, like, so often I have to pray, like, God, please, you know, heal this person I love, mind, body, and spirit, and, like, may they open their hearts to you and carry me and like, help me to trust in you more and love you more, because I need that strength and support. I can't do it on my own. Like, this world can be heavy, and it can be super joyful, don't get me wrong. But, like, sometimes, well, always, I need God.
And then in closing, to someone who's out there right now who's perhaps still struggling to find that connection with God, or is still holding on to that belief that they are a diehard atheist and I'm going to burn my life down to the ground, what piece of hope can you leave to them that they too can find some conception of God that perhaps is completely not the same one of their childhood?
That's so cool, because having burned my life down to the ground, I can speak from experience that, you know, when I read, there's a line in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that is basically like, just choose your own conception of God. And that to me was like this shining beam of, wow, I don't have to adopt anybody else's ideas. I can just in that dark moment of the soul or in that hopeful moment of the soul, just, God, help me. Like, God, like, what's I have a religious faith, but like, God to me is love and mercy. And like, that's enough to make my beginning. And so if I'm just starting out, all I have to do is pray, but I don't have to know how to pray, right? Like, God help me can be a perfect prayer. You know, I don't need any expertise in order to invite this loving God who already loves me to, like, as Ryan talked about, provide and help me and guide me and go from there.
Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll stick around. So if anybody out there would like to speak to Jen, she'll stick around after for a few minutes. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jen, for being with us all night long. Thank you, Karie, for the work you're doing with Jen and being up here. So grateful to have you here. I said this last service. Jen reminded me when she was speaking that, a lot of people ask us, why did we name this place Free? Why did we start this thing called Free? And the things that set us free, love, grace, compassion, forgiveness, these are all the things that are so freely given by God. So this place, you people, what happens here, free. You people are free, and so glad to be on this journey with you. The way we close things down on a Saturday night is similar to how we begin. We start with celebrations, but we close with heartaches. Because maybe this week you've been carrying around a burden and it's been weighing you down and you've been carrying it around alone, thinking you could do it on your own. And, well, I would tell you it's why we have community. You don't have to journey this journey alone. You don't have to walk alone. Sometimes there's a lot of power that happens just in putting words to the heartache, words to the burden. So if you need prayer, uplifting, some encouragement, well, I encourage you to raise your hand. Karie has a mic on this side. Austin has a mic on this side. Again, if you're online, drop your heartaches in the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments, wherever you're joining us from. And we'll take 3 minutes for this.
My dad is in the hospital right now. He just had a mini stroke, so please pray for him.
All right, man. Prayers for your dad. Prayers for you.
Hey, my name is Sean. I don't know my sobriety date, but I know 2 days ago I tested negative for everything.
That's a good thing, man. Way to go. We'll celebrate it.
But that's not what I'm celebrating.
Okay.
It's the anniversary. "23 years ago, I lost 3 people. 2 of them were my children. 1 of them was my best friend in an accident. That's all.
Prayers
And it's
for
good
you,
to
man.
be in a church that reminds me of my church in Long Beach.
All right.
Thank you.
Prayers for you, brother. I'm glad you're here.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and just had a very heavy week. I had met my best friend in recovery 3 years ago, Kyle, and we were getting ready to celebrate her 2-year anniversary from alcoholism, and I had talked to her 10 days prior and got a call she was in hospice and then passed away on Wednesday. And so she's with me already, I know, but just wanted to lift her up tonight. So.
Yeah. Prayers for everyone who loved her, family and friends, and you. Anyone else?
Thanks.
asking for prayers. I've been taking a week off just to kind of reconnect with God, and I've been going hard for a year, and I kind of lost it this week and feel empty. So I'm gonna take a week off and just kind of can reconnect. So if you could lift me up in prayer, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. Prayers for you, Darren. Glad you're here.
Hello. My sponsor actually has pancreatic cancer, and she had gallstones also, so they haven't started chemo, but they're going to start chemo on Monday. So just please pray for her because it's cancer, you know?
Yeah. Lifting her up. Prayers for her. Thank you, Rachel. Austin, you want to join me up here, dude?
Sure.
Man, that new sweatshirt looks good on you, man.
Ah, man.
I mean, just rocking it. All right, dude, we'll join the online community. Thank you, Karie and Austin, for passing around mics. Thank you for joining me up here. Of
course.
You want to take the first one, and I'll take the second?
Sounds like a plan.
Man of habit. You get a long one. This is Mark.
All right. So Mark says, my heartache tonight is, please pray for me as I'm still clean and sober, 199 days today. But coming to the realization that things aren't working out between my husband and I. After 10 years together and having everything and on top of the world, then to COVID, relapse, separation, rehab, sober living, and then now homeless because my credit score isn't what it should be. Thank God I do have 2 months at my full-time job. I'm still believing that there is a purpose that God has for me. But sometimes it just gets hard, dark, and lonely.
Yeah, Mark, prayers for you, brother. Yeah, that's heavy stuff, man. Praying for you. Steven says, please pray for Elizabeth in jail, finally off fentanyl in jail. Long road ahead. Yes, it is a long road ahead. So lifting up Elizabeth tonight. Stephen, thank you for sharing that with us. Prayers for her.
And Jonathan says, prayer for those struggling with addiction, and hopefully they find recovery.
We do recover.
That, yeah.
Living proof,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Thank you, Austin, for being up here with me, brother. Appreciate you. All right, y'all, if you have been impacted by the mission of breaking the silence of addiction, well, I'd like to let you know that your generous giving here makes a huge difference. We encourage generous giving. There's a few different ways to give here free. You can download the free Recovery Community app, and there's a giving button there. You can give one time, weekly, monthly, however you want to do it. Totally up to you. Or you can go straight to the website. The tip jar is at the end. The website is first, freerecoverycommunity.com. There's a giving button there. Or there's the giving kiosk just beside these doors and one outside these doors. They say giving on them for you cash-type people. People ask all the time, how are you funded? We are funded by you, the people. So thank you for your giving here. And we do have, Christine, what do we have? The dip jar. Do you like the dip jar? So I want you to model for people when you walk out how to use the dip jar. All you do is, it's a great way to give, very safe, simple, secure. You take your credit card, you dip it in, and then you pull it out, and the thing lights up, and you get to feel good about your giving. You can't give more than $20 or less than $20. It's set at $20 only. It doesn't mean you can't dip more than once. Of course you can. Right, Christine? That's right. She's going to model that for you afterwards. All right, y'all, thank you for being a part of it. Truly, it makes a big difference here. We don't exist without your giving. Shall we close with a prayer? All right, I encourage you to just open up the hands. Yeah, it's just a simple sign of openness. Maybe there are some old gods you need to let die, and you're opening yourself to God coming into your life in new ways, life-giving ways. So just take a big, deep breath in. And if you don't know the Lord's Prayer, it'll be on your screen. Who's always with us? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Grace and peace to you, my brothers and sisters.